Hello, my name is Naraya Visangani with the number 123251201.
My name is Rahman Narachakti and my study number is 123251207.
Okay, so the next video is our explanation about the Viking.
Okay, welcome back to the issues of the past. Today we are gonna deep into the world of the Norsemen, the people we usually call by Viking. We are expanding our talk today to look closely at their true cultural legacy. Dr. Nara is back with us. Dr. Nara, let us start with the word itself and how they look. TV show saw them covered in mud, wearing dark leather and dirty animal skin. Is that accurate?
Okay, interesting question. Thank you, Sakti. No, that is completely wrong. The first, the word Viking was not a nationality. It was a job. It means that a raider or a pirate. The people were Norsemen from Scandinavia. Second, the mud and dark leather looks in the Hollywood is inventions only. In reality, Norsemen loved bright colors. They wore dyed clothes, bright red, yellows, and blues. And they were actually very clean compared to other Europeans at that time. So that is not true.
Oh, really? They were clean?
Yeah, one of the most common things we find in their graves are comb. They cared a lot about their hair and braids. In fact, an English writer back then complained that the Norsemen were stealing all the English women because the Norsemen took a bath every Saturday, combed their hair, and then changed their clothes. The Scandinavian word of Saturday literally translates to washing day. So they clean their body every Saturday.
Okay. That completely changed the picture. And what about the horn helmet?
Okay, so the horn helmets is actually a pure fiction. Horn helmets were invented in the 1900s by the German opera about Norse god. A real warrior would never wear a horn on his head because an enemy could easily grab them in a fight. They were simple, smooth iron helmets.
Okay. To leave a legacy, they had to travel. And to travel, they need ships. Ships. Why were their ships better than everyone else's ships?
Okay, so their ships were the main reason they could change the other worlds. Other countries built ships with heavy or stiff woods, but the Norsemen are different. They built ships by overlapping the thin piece of wood. This made the ships bend in a flex in a heavy ocean wave instead of breaking. We call this clinker build.
How did this help them attack or trade?
Okay, so this ship floats in a very high in the water. A huge ship carrying 60 men could cross the deep Atlantic Ocean, but it could also sail up in a tiny, shallow river. This means that they could travel far inland. No other culture had ships that could do both deep ocean and shallow river sailing, so they are different.
Okay, and how did they navigate without compass?
Okay, that's very interesting. They actually uses nature. They watch the birds and see where the land was. They felt the temperature of the water, whether it's warm or cold, watch the direction of the wave, and follow the stars. Just like in the Moana movie, if we ever saw them. And then they had a deep inherited knowledge of the sea. This knowledge is a huge part of their legacy too. They taught that the rest of the Europe new ways to build ships and to sail safely.
We all know they attacked places like England in the year uh, 793. But you mentioned before that they were also great trader. Where did they trade?
Okay, so where did they trade? They actually traded everywhere. They did not just sail in the west to the England or France. They also sailed Swedish, Norsemen, and they sailed east, going down the long river of Russia and Ukraine. They went all the way to the modern day Turkey and the Middle East. We have found thousands of silver coins from the Islamic world buried in Sweden. They traded animals furs, ivory from walrus, and hunting birds.
Okay, but there is a dark side to this economy, right? Slavery, like for example.
Yes, that's part of their legacy people like to ignore is slavery. So slavery was the backbone of their economy. When they attack a village, they stole silver, but they also kidnapped those peoples. They took them away with the ships. And for example, Dublin in Ireland was actually built by the Norsemen to be a giant slave market.
How big was the slave population?
It was pretty massive. Some of historians believe that at certain times, 20% or more of their populations were slaves. Slaves did the hard farming work, so the freemen could go out exploring and fighting. They also sold these slaves to rich empire in the east. There's nothing heroic about it. It was brutal business.
Okay, for now, let's talk about their daily life. We always see them fasting in huge wooden hall. What were they actually eating?
Okay, they actually eat simple foods, but eat a lot of fish, especially herring and boiled meat from pigs or sheep. They grew barley and rye to make flatbread and porridge. They also ate a lot of dairy, like cheese and thick yogurt. They had to salt, dry, or smoke their food because it would last through the freezing winters. Fish were real, but they were rare. Most days were just hard work from the farm.
Okay, did they have a timer for art? We do not usually think of them as artists.
Well, that's wrong because they're actually amazing artists. And this is a huge part of their cultural legacy. They did not paint on the large canvases, but they carved their art into wood, bone, or metal. They love making complex patterns of twisting animals and snakes. They carved this beautiful design onto swords, and then their ships, and then their jewelry. A Norseman's sword was a beautiful, expensive piece of art that we can find nowadays.
Let us look at the free people in their society. Did women have any power? We hear stories about strong female warriors.
Okay, so actually the idea of armies of women fighting is mostly just a myth. We have found a few graves that might belong to no women fighters, but Norse society was strictly run by men. However, women had a very important and powerful role in their homes.
Okay, what did the woman do when the men went sailing?
Okay, so actually they managed everything when the men went sailing. They were in charge of the farm, the slaves, the money. They also made the clothes and the giant sails for the ships. Making a sail took months of hard work and was very expensive. Because of this, women had rights. A Norse woman could own land if her husband treated her badly. She could ask for a divorce and take the money back. In the rest of the Europe at that time, women almost never do that. So Viking women have different.
Okay, how did they handle crime if they did not have police? This seems important for their legacy.
It is very important, right? They held outdoor meetings called a thing. Freemen would gather there to vote on laws and solve arguments. It was an early form of court system, actually.
How did they punish people?
Okay, so if someone stole from you or hurt you, the leaders of the thing, yeah, they would force that person to pay you silver. Even for a murder, the killer usually had to pay the dead person's family a lot of money. If they refused to pay, they became an outlaw. An outlaw had no legal protection, and anyone could hunt him down and kill them without getting in trouble. The idea of bringing people together to solve problems is front of a community. It's a direct ancestor to our modern jury system.
So, before they changed, they explored a lot. They found Iceland and America, right?
Yes, they sailed west and they founded Iceland, where they built whole new society. Then they went farther west and found Greenland. Finally, around year 1000, a man named Leif Erikson sailed all the way to North America.
Why did they not stay in America?
Yeah, because it was too far from their home. And the Native Americans who lived there fought back. The Norsemen realized it was too dangerous to stay. So they went back to Greenland, but it proves their ships and their bravery is unmatched.
So, how did the era end? Did they lose a big war?
Okay, so the era ended in around year 1066, but it's not because they were destroyed. The era ended because they blended in. Their home countries became regular kingdoms with big kings. They stopped attacking their neighbors and started acting like regular European countries.
So, what about the ones who traveled?
The ones who moved to France married French Pope, learned French, and become the Normans. The ones who moved to Eastern Europe adopted the local language and become the first Russians. They stopped being Norsemen because they became the locals.
Okay. To sum it all up, what is their absolute biggest cultural legacy today?
Okay, so their legacy is known in our daily lives actually. First, the English language. Words like sky, window, anger, egg, leg, knife are all Norse words. The days of the week, like Thursday, are named after their god. Second, their city building. They founded major cities across Europe, like Dublin and Cork in Ireland. Third, the law. The concept of jury system and public courts come directly from the thing. Finally, trade. They connected to the world, bringing silver from the Middle East all the way to the forests of North America.
It is amazing how much of our modern world connect back to them. They were so much more than writer.
Exactly. They were farmer, artists, lawyers, master shipbuilders, and the greatest adapter of their time. They changed map and the culture of Europe forever.
Okay, before we talk about how the era ended, I want to go back to language. You mentioned words like sky and knife. Did they change anything else about how we speak English today?
Yes, the impact of the English language is actually much deeper than just simple vocab. They fundamentally change English grammar and morphology.
How so? I thought they just broke a few new words.
Okay, so think about common pronouns. The word they, their, and them are all odds, Norse words. Before the Norseman arrives, Old English used different words for plural nouns, pronouns that sounded very confusing. The Norsemen brought their own pronouns, and the English adopted them because they were clearer.
That is a huge change for a language to make.
It is actually. They also help simplifying the way we build sentence when two different cultures, the Anglo-Saxons and the Norsemen, had to trade farm, live side by side. They dropped the complicated grammar rules so they could understand each other better. Our modern English language is much simpler today, largely because of their daily interaction.
Okay, that's so they were thinker, not just a fighter. Speaking of thinking, did they have any games or ways to practice the strategy? I imagine they need sharp mind for all navigating, trading, and surviving.
Okay, so absolutely. They were highly strategic people. We often picture them in a wide range, but they valued a calm, calculating mind above all of this. They practiced this through a famous board game called Hennevaftel. It required deep tactical thinking, a bit like chess.
And how do you play?
It's not that hard actually. It is a game of unequal sides. One player has a king in the center of the board with a small group of guards, where the other player has a large army surrounding them on the edge. The goal is to help the king escape is for the center player, and the attackers, they need to try to trap him.
That sounds exactly like a raid.
Yes. It is perfect mirrors of their real life tactics of attacking quickly from outside or trying to escape the trap with limited men. Later on, because of their fast trade networks, they also adopted the actual game of chess from the East. The famous Lewis chessmen found in Scotland are beautiful chess pieces carved from the walrus ivory by Norse artists. They respected a sharp mind just as much as a sharp sword, so they were actually highly intelligent people.
Okay, that's all of the question. First, I want to say thanks to Professor Nara because gives their times
Yes.
and give us about Viking knowledge. Yeah, that's all I want to say. Thanks so much for you.
Okay, thank you for Sakti here also for questioning the interesting question about the Vikings. So I hope from this video more people know about Viking history.